How Google Works by Eric Schmidt and Jonathan Rosenberg. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sam and I want to make self-growth normal because people shouldn't have to look this information up. It should just be mainstream knowledge. If you agree, then please make sure to smash that like button. From the guys who brought you a dedication to the $1 trillion coach, Bill Campbell. I don't know about you guys, but I use Google pretty often, so I figured it'd be nice to know how it works. And I always figured behind the scenes it was a little bit more complicated than just, Sam, you idiot, you just type something in and then hit search, and then it'll tell you what you need to know. Okay, Mr. Obvious Oscar. The only other way to find out how Google works is to look it up on Google. Or Bing, I guess, but I've never ever heard anyone ever say ever, oh,
I wonder how Bing works.
So in this video, I'm gonna go over the chapters of the book, things that surprised me, things I learned, things I liked, things that maybe I didn't like. I'm also gonna go over some standout quotes from the book, who I recommend this book to, and what books to maybe check out next. In Introduction, Lessons Learned from the Front Row, this is about what Google has learned regarding consumers, what we want, and how things have changed regarding everything from navigation to booking appointments and buying music, and what makes an innovative and fast and driven and smart company and even employee. They talked for like 5 minutes straight in the audio version just about the description of what they call a smart creative. And here's one little excerpt that stood out. She is user smart, no matter the industry. She understands her product from the user or consumer's perspective better than almost anyone. We call her a power user, not casual but almost obsessive in her interest. She is the automotive designer who spends her weekends fixing up that 69 GTO, the architect who can't stop redesigning her house. She is her own focus group, alpha tester, and guinea pig. It sounds like the person that I try to be every day. Except maybe not that part about the 69 GTO. In my dream world, it would probably be like a 99 Cherokee or something like that. I actually realized at this point what they mean by how Google works, and I had to go this far into the book to realize this. Let me clarify something though. This book is about how the company itself works, not how the site works. It's about the culture, the strategy, the talents, the decisions, and other odds and ends that complete its operations as a corporation. This is not the sex ed of the Google search engine where it's like, okay, boys and girls, the user has an emotional urge to find some information, so they go online to browse the web, and after they type all the words in their search and hit the enter button, a huge number of different results are blah blah blah. Like, I don't know what made me think I would learn more in this book about SEO and the Google algorithm and what it favors, but it's probably infinitely too complex and ever changing to even bother putting into a book, let alone fathoming, if you will. It's like, have you ever walked into a Barnes & Noble and saw a book with the name Google Algorithm for Dummies or something like that? Chapter 2 is culture, believe your own slogans. They mentioned certain companies that went down under the market crash of 2008. What I liked about this is that it wasn't bitter. Normally I would say in reviews like, oh, this is so negative how they did that, but it reminded me of how Dale Carnegie did it in How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is probably a book that I can't go like 2 or 3 reviews nowadays without mentioning. Well, you know, this was Enron's slogan. This is what Lehman Brothers did before their collapse. If they're looking down on anything in this book, it's definitely deliberately caring about things that go against your customers' interests. You also hear about the hippos, what they call them. It's fast and dangerous and big and scary. They advise you not to listen to the hippos. For anyone who's wondering, hippo stands for highest paid person's opinion. Because when you stop listening to them, you create a meritocracy, because that requires equal participation of both the hippo and the smart creative. I also like that they'll share what they got certain ideas from, like Amazon's 2 pizza rule, and how you can tell who's running Apple based on how your iPhone is designed. You may not be the one who signs the checks, but the company does with their products what you want them to do with the product, and that's how it should be. Also looking at divas. They said that Steve Jobs was one of the greatest divas in business history. If you watch interviews with like Jeff Bezos and like the Google founders and stuff like that, you're gonna notice that these people all admire each other, which is really, really interesting. Chapter 3 is called Strategy. Your plan is wrong. A flawed MBA business plan, according to the authors, usually lasts lacks something called a technical insight, which is interesting. It's a new way to apply technology or design that either lowers the cost of something or increases the function and usability of the product for the better. It's a lot harder to practice than preach, despite how simple it sounds, but Google was able to do this with language translation, video chats, and probably 7 million other things at this point. But this book came out like 4 or 5 years ago, if that counts for anything. When they talked about optimizing for growth, they also again mentioned Amazon and how Amazon continues to grow, and Netflix as well. And I thought to myself, okay, either this book is about how Google and other successful companies work, or it's about how Google works and some other companies who influenced the way that it works. Chapter 4, Talent, Hiring, is the most important thing you do. I also found it interesting that they believe hiring should be peer-based and not hierarchical, with committees that are focused specifically on bringing the best people into the company, even if those people don't fit into whatever roles are available. Allegedly, if you hire smart creatives, they'll just create their own position. I love this concept of the smart creative. It's like,
This is our ideal employee and probably yours.
then they refer to who they believe you should hire instead of just any employee. They refer to that, by the way, as a smart creative throughout basically the rest of the book. They also cite multiple books I've actually reviewed when discussing positive and negative mindsets. Like, literally, the book is called Mindset by Carol S. Dweck and Grit by Angela Duckworth. They even go into recruiters, saying that overdependence on recruiters is a problem because it becomes tempting for recruiters to stop looking for the cream of the crop, as they say. Recruiters don't have to live with their own mistakes, but the companies that they recruit people into do have to live with them. Their philosophies on stuff like interviewing also are very unorthodox. The best interviews feel like intellectual discussions between friends. What books are you reading right now? Questions should be large and complex with a range of answers to draw out the person's thought process that the interviewer can push back on to see how the candidate stakes out and defends a position. A high quality candidate is evaluating you as much as you are evaluating her. There was a point where Larry Page was the one who reviewed every single job offer before it was made. That's how important it was to them that the right people are hired. In fact, whether or not it's imperative to stress, they had so much to say about this that it was the biggest chapter of the book. And occasionally they'll add a drip of humor. They said that product management in Silicon Valley was like flying an F-16 at Mach 2 over a border landscape 2 meters off the ground. Plus, if you crash it, it's just like a video game at the arcade and we have lots of quarters. In the section about data, they referred to the person who whines, "But I'm not a numbers person," as the one in the back with the magenta shirt. Like, why magenta? There's career advice included too, about finding the right industry before finding anything else. Because everyone knows that it's easier to change jobs than industries, but it's probably not something we know consciously. Chapter 5 is decisions. The true meaning of consensus. They stressed timing a lot when it came to decisions, saying to maintain flexibility until the last possible moment. Sitting down to process and consider all the details is something that takes time and may sometimes exceed every desired outcome. And then they start diving into time and time management. Chapter 6 is communications be a damn good router. Google seems to put an extreme emphasis on transparency. Googlers have something called OKRs, which stands for objectives and key results. Objectives are what you're supposed to get done, and key results are the way in which your progress is measured. Every employee in Google updates and posts his or her OKRs publicly, company-wide, every quarter, so that everyone knows everyone else's priorities all the time. And this is the fastest way to figure out at any time of day what motivates a person who you're working with. For more information on OKRs, please check out the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr. This guy worked very closely with Google from the beginning of their time as a company. And this was the point where how Google works took an unexpected turn toward productivity. Chapter 7, Innovation, Create the Primordial Ooze. There's just something about the word ooze. It's just uncomfortable to say out loud. Who knew that Steve Jobs and Eric Schmidt were friends, said the iPhone user on YouTube. The last few chapters, this one and Conclusion, Imagining the Unimaginable, I listened to in the audio version probably 3 times. And I'm not sure if I didn't learn that much or I wasn't paying that much attention, but I just don't have that much to say about them that I didn't say already about the whole book. But these guys cite other books in self-help, business, and technology constantly. In this channel, our goal is to make self-growth normal. If you go to Google headquarters, Based on what you'll probably hear in this book, I imagine that self-growth is normal there. They actually have a channel of their own called Talks at Google, where many of the books I've reviewed on this channel, they'll actually have the author of each book do a visit and do a keynote on that book in front of maybe 100 or 200 different Google employees. Google is just the type of business that it's like they're describing it as unimaginably scalable. It seems like there are either markets you either enter or create with the right team that'll take you places where music and flowers and Pokemon card trading couldn't possibly fathom taking you. And to me, that's what's a little bit unfortunate about this. But maybe it's not unfortunate, and I'm not saying this is anyone's fault either. I mean, this is actually like incredibly limited thinking. If this isn't true, however, let's just examine it for the sake of perspective. The most that anyone's done so far in like a specific market is create a specialized big box store or restaurant like Dick's Sporting Goods or Noodles & Co. And actually, this might be because of companies like Google, where ideas like small is now the new big, they really come to light. And at that point, I suppose it comes down to what we can learn from them. After all, it's not like Google invented the wheel. They're not the first company in the history of history, corporate history, corporation history. They got ideas in management and operations from so many other US and non-US tech monoliths that you can't even count it, or maybe you could. My point is, and this may sound a little bit vague here or maybe meta, but we can do what they did for ourselves and end up where we want to, even if it's a different place. The possibilities are incessant, but we really have to consider them where we didn't before. Quotes. The customer has a voice. Provide a lousy product or service at your peril. Let data decide, but don't let it take over. If you can't tell someone how to think, you have to manage the environment where they think and make it a place where they want to come every day. There's no such thing as a minor lapse in integrity. Great people are often unusual and difficult, and some of those quirks can be quite off-putting. Giving the customer what he wants is less important than giving the customer what he doesn't know he wants. Information technology is growing exponentially, and our tuition about the future is not exponential, it's linear. In business, and particularly in high tech, it's not enough to be great at what you do. You have to catch at least one really big wave and ride it all the way into shore. You have to get people to feel something. They only want to do something after they feel something. Spend 80% of your time on 80% of your revenue. The essence of being human involves asking questions, not answering them. Innovative people don't need to be told to do it. They need to be allowed to do it. Direction 1. I recommend this book for anyone who literally wants to know how a company like Google works. Like, there's nothing they didn't go over in this book. They went over leadership, hiring and firing, wages, meetings, and succession plans. It actually reminds me of a book that I'm about to recommend to you guys in like 3 seconds from now. Direction 2. If you like this book, I recommend checking out first thing right after you're done, The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. Certain things like corporate culture, HR policies, employee titles and ranks, headhunting and interviewing. If you like how Google works, you just might really like The Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. How Google Works by Eric Schmidt, Jonathan Rosenberg, and I think Alan Eagle. There's a link in the description if you guys want to check it out and read the reviews. That and all the other books that I mentioned in this video if you want to check those out too. If there are any other books that you guys want me to check out and review, please let me know in the comments below. Also let me know if you checked out this book and you liked it. But hey, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, because 1, it's free, and 2, I don't get why people watch this far into my videos and they don't subscribe. But if you have subscribed and you want to turn it up just a notch and turn on that notification bell to get a notification whenever I drop new videos, that would mean the world to me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. You can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.